On this note, I would like to invite, General Kulkarni. First of all, sir, thank you so much for taking out time for this session. Really, really means a lot to us, where you're addressing so many people today and talking about from how do we change that shift from bullying to belonging in the school. How schools can prevent, what can they do, and according to you, what is that, few things that the school should always remember when it comes to, handling bullying, and especially in the era where children are just taking their lives, which is not okay. I was, talking in the beginning also that as society we are failing if the children cannot come and talk to us comfortably rather than just taking their lives. So, on this note, I would like to just put on the screen this one question for you. If yes, how? Or if you want to start with, your message to the audience.
I've heard some of the discussion now, and I would you like me to answer any specific questions, or would you like me to uh, just
Sir,
highlight an overview of my view of what I heard? I mean, my overview of what the discussion was about.
yeah, your overview, sir. Let's start with that.
Yeah. Okay. So now, I mean, what I felt the discussion was just running into many levels concurrently.
Yes.
See, there is a legal framework which is involved in bullying. And as late as October, the Supreme Court has given guidelines on how to handle bullying, particularly in the context of leading at an extreme step of suicides. It's not a very long document. They've handed over a particular case to the CBI, and in that they've given guidelines. It's worth reading for everyone because that's come from the Supreme Court. There's no higher body. So there's a legal framework to this. Then there are policy frameworks, which various, because education is a concurrent subject. So many states also clarify this. So there's a policy framework. The third thing, which is at school level, is procedural frameworks, which need to be documented, shared, and understood by everybody, which includes parents, students, staff, everyone. But above all, there is a moral framework. Students, we have a responsibility of duty of care towards our students. There's a moral framework. It is not the legality about whether you did the right thing, wrong thing, are you guilty, not guilty. And in that moral framework, as I heard you mentioning, when it comes to your parents, let's say, if your parents are talking to you, even on a video call, they will sense that something is amiss. And you may try and put on a very pleasant face and say, no, no, all is okay, nothing, no problem. They'll say, no, 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 something is wrong. Where does that come from? That comes from a very close personal connect, which is at a moral, emotional, consciousness level. So we need to not start from the legal end, but we should start from the moral and emotional end, and then go backwards and make sure that we also have everything all the way through the legal end. Because sometimes, in their exuberance, when some incident happens, the governments or administration tends to find the first thing is to catch hold of the school staff and sometimes to just pacify public opinion, maybe file an FIR or even arrest them and go that far. So legally also you need to have your thing covered, assuming that you've done the right things. And to do the right things, you have had to have passed through the other stages of a good policy framework, a good procedural framework, and of course a good moral lens that you operate from. But I would just like to throw open an idea to all the participants. You know, we have a National Disaster Management Authority, which is a very high level thing. In fact, it's chaired by the Prime Minister himself. They have a few steps that they take in attending to a disaster management. And a case of bullying or an incident that happens is actually like a disaster in any school. Any incident that comes to light is like a disaster, and you should be very concerned. So, some of the steps are, of course, the first one, most obvious, is prevention. And as we go into the question answers, I'd be happy if somebody would like to either highlight, comment, or ask about the first step being prevention. The second is mitigation, reduce the chances of the problem happening. The third step is to be prepared. What if it happens? Because very often The first responses from schools puts them on the defensive because they're not ready to respond. And often the victims or the parents or the media, uh, they hit the ground running faster than the school's response, which puts the school on a defensive, and it takes a long time to counter the narrative. The fourth thing is the response if a disaster does take place or an incident happens. The fifth is the recovery, and I heard this someone saying that it's not only the uh, bully, but also the victim who needs to be attended to in the response. And last and most important is the rehabilitation. I heard somebody mentioning that for many, many years from childhood they've been bullied. You have to rehabilitate these people. How do you bring them back into the mainstream? It's very traumatic, it's not easy, but if you don't bring them back into it, there is historically a lot of evidence to show that somebody who's been bullied in childhood tends to suppress these feelings for many years till they get a chance. And even in adulthood, they'll end up being a bully. How many of you seen uh, a movie of Akshay Kumar recently on the Jallianwala Bagh incident? Okay, in that Brigadier Dyer, the guy who ordered the shooting, is
Mm-hmm.
shown to have been bullied, in fact, in one of India's well-known schools of that time,
Yes.
right? Because he was bullied by a group of people who happened, a couple of guys who happened to be Sikhs. And therefore, he was carrying this in his head that if ever get a chance, I'll sort them out.
And he
Okay.
did that. And he did
Yeah.
that when he got a chance. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm just saying is these things come back to haunt you at a much later age. So therefore, certain things happen. Somebody has been feels traumatized, becomes a shooter at a later age. Fortunately, less in India, but in US campuses and all, it's a very common thing that happens, right? So therefore, rehabilitation of these people is also important. So I'll just go over the steps again quickly for a recap, if somebody wants. Prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, recovery, and rehabilitation. All this whole cycle must be thought through in any school environment. And depending on where you are in this journey of, of your school, in general, or of a particular incident, these interventions are inescapable if you want to come back to where your school should be. So I
Mm-hmm.
think with these opening remarks, I'd be happy to either hear comments or take on questions or whatever you like, Shika.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. There were a few questions that had come to us, and we thought that we'll ask you, on this session during this session. So my first question is that how can schools enforce discipline without creating fear and still protect vulnerable children? Because when we talk about bullying, it's the first thing that comes to our mind is, okay, we need to punish that person. So that punishment or that creating that fear, what can we do to, a better version of it? What do you think?
Yeah,
What
first and
has
foremost,
worked in yours?
yeah, first and foremost, in any walk of life, discipline is internal. I'll give you a small example. If all these people are here today attending your webinar, they must have logged in at a given time.
Yes.
Did you have the authority to ensure they came and logged in at the given time? Or they did it of their own free will? Obviously,
Free
of
will.
their own free will. You couldn't have forced them, right?
No.
So there's a sense of discipline. Okay, I have to attend a webinar at whatever time, and therefore I must log in at so and so time. There's discipline. And one example I often give, when kids go to school, mothers prepare their tiffins and send them off in a bus or in a vehicle to school every day, whether they're unwell, good mood, bad mood, it doesn't matter. That is discipline. So
Mm-hmm.
discipline essentially comes from within. What is enforced from outside, right? And if I follow something which is enforced on me from outside, then I'll do it out of fear. Fear of losing the good impression with my teacher or my principal, fear of being punished, fear of being denied some opportunity. Okay, in this case, you are banned from taking part in X, Y, Z. So you are, by having external forms of uh, so-called compliance and coercion, you are creating fear. And in fact, coercion is one of the most common elements of bullying itself. So therefore, you cannot do it by coercion. You have to do it by instilling in them that, look, this is the expectation, and therefore it is in your interest to be, say, punctual. It is your interest to be dressed tidily. It is in your interest to complete your homework in time. Now, this cannot, you cannot flip a button and make this happen overnight. It has to be the culture of the school. It has to be reinforced again and again and again. And yes, it's like playing, say, a soccer game. If there is a foul, somebody will blow a whistle, but you are allowed to continue playing the game unless a red card is shown. You're not being thrown out of the field. You don't have to flash a red card for every small thing. So people must know that yes, if I do infringement, there will be, and they must be taught that there will be consequences for the actions you take willfully. An inadvertent mistake must be overlooked. But if it's willful, yes, they must know that there are consequences. But after the consequences are over, they're welcome to come back and join the team again. So the approach has to be of anything restrictive, has to be of allowing them to redeem themselves and not of retribution. Here's my chance, I'm going to sort you out and never allow you to come back again. So if that is the approach, it is slow, it is not very glamorous, but this is the approach that actually works in the long run. And what it creates in the long run is a sense of mutual trust. The student trusts the teacher and the teacher trusts the student. If this trust breaks down, then even a small word uh, can sound like a big gully. And if there is, trust and mutual confidence, even a very bad abuse can be laughed off. Okay, it was spur of the moment, bola tha, forget about it, right? It's a reaction that matters. And therefore, I recommend that we try and reinforce the concept of self-discipline again and again. Over a long period of time, you will find a positive change. I mean, and you see, like for our personal lives also, we draw boundaries. Similarly, in school, you have to draw the boundaries. But these boundaries should be mutually respected boundaries. If they're drawn one way, then the transaction is not equal. And as somebody suggested, let's the victims themselves be the counsel. The same way, the boundaries are also to be drawn mutually.
Yeah,
What is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. And kids are smart enough to understand that.
yeah. So I've got another question personally on the on my chat box where this teacher wants to know that they are facing a lot of challenge in understanding what is teasing and what is bullying. So they, as an educator, they are not able to understand how to address this. Is it just a
Yeah.
banter or
No.
just,
It's like this. When I'm willing to accept it, it can become teasing. When I'm not willing to accept it, it is bullying. Do you understand? If I'm willing to get teased by you, if I have, that's what I said, this is if I have trust and faith in you,
yeah,
and I will take a lot of nonsense from you. If not, even the slightest, this thing. Let's say you're walking on the street and by mistake you rub shoulders against somebody. You by mistake you push someone. You just say, "Oh, sorry, excuse me," and you'll move on. If the other person felt there was no intent, remember bullying always comes with intent.
yeah,
If the other person felt there was no intent, he'll say, "Oh, you just say excuse me, sorry," and walk off, right? Otherwise, say, "अच्छा, अपने आप को क्या समझता है? मेरे को धक्का मारा, who are you?" And let's sort it out.
yeah.
And which is why you will find, especially after COVID had happened, people were on a short fuse. People were very sensitive to any kind of remarks because they had lost human connect and contact for a couple of years or 1.5 years. So therefore, what is teasing and what is bullying is a function of the receiver. The
Mm-hmm.
receiver has to decide whether there's a feeling of getting bullied or
Yeah,
being teased. If the receiver is feeling teased, no problem. They can also respond and it's okay.
yeah. And I would like to just reiterate that it depends in a banter situation. Do we have a bully or a victim? In a banter situation, we don't really have victim because they are just fighting and they are having conversation, which is not okay. But yeah, I mean, there's no victim in that. Basically, that's the point.
And again, I'm highlighting a point that firstly, there is intent, then there's also an element of coercion. When you are doing this, you are trying to create a position of superiority over the other party,
Yes.
right? And therefore saying that, look, I am superior or I am the boss, and you have to toe my line, and I will show my authority by bullying you, by making you do things or responding in a way that makes you look foolish or stupid,
Mm-hmm.
or pass remarks in public which make you embarrassed, stuff like that. So these two things, intention and coercion, have to be, and both these are perceived. I may have any intention. If I don't perceive that you're trying to bully me, I couldn't care.
Sure, sir. There's another interesting question that the general talked about consequences of breaches of discipline in the context of a school. What could be these consequences?
See, as I said, the whole approach has to be based on redemption and not retribution. For every infringement that is done, firstly, if it is not harmful to others, we should allow life to go on. You just talk to that person, but let life move on. If it is likely to be or is harmful to anybody else, there has to be consequences, and the person must know. And therefore, as I said, when we come to the procedural policies and procedural part of it, that it
Yes.
has to be clearly laid down that there will be consequences. That certain things there is zero tolerance. Let's say your school decides there is zero tolerance for drugs. Okay. And it's mutually agreed. It is known to the students, it's signed for by the parents. And if it still then happens, well, then you face the consequences, you leave school, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, it is very important that it is understood what will be the consequences must be understood by the person likely to be doing the infringement. Very often, I have seen in some schools, these things are well intended, well meant, but it's not backed up by documentation which is understood. Or if there is an SOP or a policy letter, it'll be 50 pages long which nobody has read.
Yeah. Or the disciplinary actions are not mentioned clearly. What will
No, no.
happen?
One, they have to be clear. Two, they have to be fair. Number three, they have to be consistent.
Yeah.
If I do something, I get punished. If my neighbor does something, he's pardoned for the same thing under the same circumstances, then that also creates a bad culture in the school.
Sure. So, I have another question. How the already prevalent culture of bullying can be changed, which is there for years? Mental set of students and sometimes the attitude of staff members who are there for years and seen this as a culture and they feel that it goes like this only. I think specifically in boarding schools, there has been a culture of okay, the senior students will bully the junior students and stuff like that.
You see, what was historically acceptable some time back is not acceptable today.
Yeah.
Even in boarding schools, there is zero tolerance of bullying. Today, any respectable boarding school will have a formal policy of zero tolerance for bullying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you go back a few centuries ago, and slavery was an accepted thing.
Yes.
Okay, in society, slavery was accepted thing. Slaves were sold and bought and made to work for a lifetime. You had bonded labor in our own country, right? It's not acceptable today.
Now. Mm-hmm.
You understand? You could discriminate against people through their caste, creed, etc., and all that. Today, there are acts of parliament which say this is not acceptable, right? So, therefore, there are changing times. You could inflict corporal punishment at one time, which was considered the norm. And there are many people of the old school who say, wow, actually, that was more effective. The reason it was more effective was the consequences were temporary.
Yeah.
It was not held on permanently. The problem with bullying, if it is really happens, is that it has long-term impacts. That is the harmful part of bullying. It's not that one-off incident that happens at that moment. So therefore, if people say that I've just recently been to a school on the outskirts of Bombay about 10 days ago, where they asked me specifically to address this issue. That look, both between teachers, students, they just can't seem to accept the idea that, I mean, this is the norm, and therefore it's a legacy thing which must move on and on. I told them, I said, no, there is no such legacy thing. In many Indian families, few couple of generations ago, the women were not allowed to work, were
Yeah.
discouraged from working. Today, hardly it's hardly spoken of, right? So therefore, when times change, we have to change. And therefore, if there has been a long legacy of this, one, by the rule of the book, you can change it instantly by saying, okay, there'll be zero tolerance. But in reality, in subtle forms, it will continue to happen for some time. And therefore, as I said, it's a slow process. You have to keep reinforcing the idea that this is a no go, this is a no go. That look, these are your younger brothers and sisters. Just like you treat your younger brother or sister, please treat them Though, mind you, even in a family, sometimes bullying can happen. It's not that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I still say that you cannot say that ये होते आ रहा है तो ठीक है चलते रहने दो. It cannot happen. But one larger point I want to make about bullying, please understand, I can only get bullied if I agree to get bullied,
Yeah.
right? So please understand, somewhere along the line, the victims also have a role to play in getting bullied. A bully will always look for a weak person who agrees to get bullied. Beyond a point, they will shift attention and go to somebody else to find whom they can bully.
Absolutely, sir, because
So
Mhm.
victims or potential victims have to be strengthened and encouraged emotionally and psychologically that look, you got to stand up.
Yeah.
Or you report to a reliable person or in your peer group or somewhere. You've got to stand up. If you don't stand up, you'll get bullied. And in every successive bullying gets worse than the previous bullying.
Mhm. Absolutely, sir. Because I strongly believe once a bully, always a bully, once a victim, always a victim. So we need to cancel the victim behavior as well and also give them that courage that, yes, speak up. I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to just take up the critical ones. Bullying, ragging, teasing often start in the early years. How realistic it is to talk about redemption, retribution, reform, and so on in the segment of a school.
Yeah, the important thing is to encourage people to be mutually respectful, right? That is the most important thing. If I respect the others, for example, I mean, I travel very often. I
Yes.
find everybody trying to push and get ahead in the queue. Okay, the flight is not taking off any earlier. When the flight lands, everybody jumps up to remove his bags. The door won't open till it opens, and you won't step out till your turn comes. All right, but these are behaviors which need to be, and civic sense and things like that have to be taught. You have to show mutual respect to each other. So right from childhood, this has to be taught that you got to respect things. Similarly, that for a gender problem, you need to respect the other sex. Things like that. Somebody may be of a different sexual orientation. You got to respect that somebody may be different from your orientation than you are. Right? They are also have a rightful place in this world. Right?
Sure.
So teaching mutual respect. Your natural behavior is selfish. A human being's natural behavior is selfish. Society has to condition you to be polite, nice, considerate, decent, etc. Otherwise, left to very small children, you put a toy in between, they'll both snatch it.
Yes, absolutely, sir.
With no ill intent, they just want to snatch it. That's all.
Yeah.
So the natural behavior is selfish. It's the conditioned behavior that we want to create, which makes them behave in a certain manner, which is acceptable and desirable in society.
Mhm. I have another question which you are going to relate a lot to. What should be the course of action in a boys' residential school where the child does not listen? Please give 4 to 5 steps to be taken. I think, Chandrakala, if you can be a little more specific because this is too random to answer. But if there's a specific
Yeah. So
concern
let
that
her
you
ask
want to
if
share,
she's
why
on,
not?
if she's here in the thing.
Yeah, yeah. Why don't you ask, unmute yourself and ask this question?
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, this my I'm heading a residential school, which is a boys' residential school, and the background is like the children they are from uh, Telugu speaking society, but we are trying a lot with them. They have really changed in last 1 year, but still there are certain children like we are trying to groom them, still they don't want to listen. Then what do we do?
Mhm.
See, you cannot get the whole class or whole group to move at the same speed. They will move at different speeds. But what you need to tackle is the one who's least likely to listen first. We tend to go for the low hanging fruit. Those
Mhm.
kids who are very easy to convert are the ones we tackle and feel happy. Okay, 60% of the class is now well behaved. No, it is that last kid, because it's that last kid who will poison the minds of four more kids. Look, that guy is not listening. He's getting away with it. Am I a fool? Why am I being, why am I being cooperative? So you have to devote personal time yourself through your counselor through somebody in the peer group. That child must be playing with someone. There must be someone talking to somebody. Somebody the friend, somebody the dorm mate or a roommate or whatever it is. Somebody the relative who they relate to. Somebody's confidence every child has. It cannot be a child if he's a total loner in the world. It'll be very few. So you have to tap that particular person to see. It's like this. As teachers or teaching staff, we have to align first with the kids before they align with us. Once we align with them and we understand their mindset, they are more likely to listen to us. All of us remember some of our favorite teachers, not because of the subject or the topic they taught us in school, but because of the way they made us feel as students.
Yeah.
Right?
Hmm.
All of us have memories of certain teachers. We may have been taught by 15, 20 teachers in school. You'll only remember a handful of them. All right. And therefore, why do you remember them? You remember them for what happens in the interaction with them, not for what they taught you. So similarly, Chandrakala, there will be somebody whom that child relates to. You have to use that person or that bunch of kids or anyone as the medium through whom you tackle this kid. If you keep throwing the rule book at that kid, nothing will happen. I can assure you that. It'll only get worse. You get more and more defiant.
So what should be the steps? Like first
I
we
told you the
talk to
steps.
the child.
Identify who is the person the child converses with, who the person the child hangs out with, right? And let that person befriend this person, right? Then show that person how his or her behavior is different from what the child is doing and why consistently and repeatedly refusing to comply or agree is only going to do long term harm to the child himself. The school will go on, nothing will happen to the school. One day the school gets fed up, they'll ask the child to leave. You get me? The school can continue without the child, but the child, given the kind of school you run, which I'm aware, right, it's a great opportunity for them to break through what is a glass ceiling in their society. So, but somebody has to impress upon that child, right? That look, you are not been brought here. You're not a prisoner in Tihar jail here. You have been brought here for what is potentially your own good. But your lecturing to that child will not help. You have to approach the child through somebody the child relates to. And after some time, the circle of one can become a circle of two, three, four, and finally it could come to you as well. But you have to find one person whom the child relates to. It could be outside the school environment. It could be on the sports field. It can be a family member, anyone. If need be, you get the family member to come down and sit and like like getting an extra equivalent of getting an external counselor for that child.
Yeah.
But if you don't tackle the worst kid, then in the long run, this will history will repeat itself.
Yeah. And also understanding the root cause because there's always a story behind that
But
extreme
but
behavior.
that story will be from outside the school
Yeah.
to begin
Yeah.
with.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Which comes to my
That's
next
why I
question.
said you may have to get this family member or somebody as an or a friend who's like
Mhm.
an outside counselor who lets you know what is the problem troubling this kid.
Yeah.
Because the kid won't open up to you.
Absolutely, sir. Now, coming to the next question, which is a little bit linked here, that how to mitigate bullying completely without checking child's home environment.
Without,
Checking child's home environment.
see, how to mitigate it, as I told you, what behavioral norms are laid down in school, how do they address each other. You don't have to go to the one extreme of wokeness where anything you say sounds offensive to the other. I mean, could sound offensive. Because,
Hmm.
for example, tomorrow if you say that, look, children in class, if I say anything that you feel offended about, you are welcome to step out. You'll soon find nobody sitting in class. I mean, good students will find a good excuse to run away. So you cannot go to extremes of wokeness either. At the same time, uh, how you mitigate these problems is because you see the positive reinforcement that comes out of good behavior, that those who are well behaved are getting rewarded. You get me? And I'm talking about small rewards. I don't keep giving stars by the dozen. Small ways they are being recognized. If nothing else, somewhere in the assembly, somebody is being mentioned that, oh, he did a good deed yesterday. Somebody, you see, everyone wants positive reinforcement. Everybody wants appreciation. Now,
Yes.
if the appreciation flows too easily, which is what is happening actually, one of the problems is this: appreciation is flowing too easily. Everyone's getting a prize, right? Everybody is on stage for the annual performance. There is
Mm-hmm.
no sense of achievement,
Yeah.
right? So therefore, parents also have to be taught and encourage this. That look, this year in the annual play or in the annual performance that we're going to have, cultural evening, we are wanting to include your child, but the child will be performing with six other people
Yeah.
on stage. So he has to be part of that team. Your child cannot be on his own or fight with them during rehearsals and all. Otherwise, we have no choice but to leave him out.
Mm-hmm.
But the end, the end of the whole transaction has to be on a positive note. I can tell you that look, your child is an idiot. Your child doesn't know anything. He's no good. I've explained 5 times to him. He doesn't understand. You can say this in a PTM, or you can say, in this particular subject on this topic, your child was facing a little difficulty, but we are working with him. And compared to the beginning of the term, he's a little better now. He may have moved from 9% to 11%, but you say he's a little better. If you are a parent, would you not like to hear this? And that if you work with us when the child comes home in the evening, maybe he can do even better. And I will send you a few examples, a few questions that you can practice with the child at home. You're involving the parents also in the process, right? And then your partners. Otherwise, you are in confrontation with the parents. Many schools are in confrontation with parents very often. See, tell me, any of us on in the gathering here today who's not happy to hear praise? We all like to hear praise. And you can always put a positive spin on anything that is happening.
Yeah.
But if you say, तुम तो नालायक हो, मैंने कोशिश कर ली, तुम्हारे तो बस की नहीं है, no chance in hell.
तुमसे नहीं हो पाएगा.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then you really think that kid is going to come around? No chance. Then that approach of redemption is gone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
We just have few more minutes, sir, so I'm going to take up one or two questions. I've got some personally, some have sent it to me. So there are three, four people who have messaged me personally where they have very in detail, elaboratively explained that how they were bullied in their school, and it is still hampering their professional life. Yes, you have already talked about it.
I gave you the example of Brigadier Dyer. I think it's a very extreme example
Yes,
at Jallianwala
very,
Bagh.
very, very, very extreme example. But after that example, also these are the recent messages that they need a closure, or they need, something to hear it from you so that at least they can close that chapter
Yeah.
in their
So
life.
I spoke to you that after recovery, there has to be rehabilitation. What has
Yes.
happened to these people who have been bullied for a long time, have not had, or whoever was dealing with them at that time, right, did not go through the process of rehabilitation. They're trying to work it out for themselves. And sometimes the trauma runs so deep that you're not willing to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But over a period of time, and especially this is true for all counselors, I find in some cases, inadvertently, I'm giving them credit that they won't do it purposely, they land up breaking confidentiality. Right? I will share something with you if and only if I know that it will not go to the third person.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, I'll tell somebody else. Why will I tell you? I can tell the whole world. So why? So if it is confidential, if you don't get it out of your system and tell someone, I often give an example when we're traveling on train journeys. You run into a stranger and you start talking, and very often you talk about some very personal experiences of your life, which you may not even be talking amongst your relatives.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing why? Because deep down in your mind, you know that this is a one-off meeting. It's not going to happen again. तो ये किसको बताएगा आदमी या लेडी किसको बताएंगी. So therefore you share, which is why you will find sometimes in certain situations, even an external counselor comes handy who say come to do a survey or come to something. Kids open up and talk to them about things, saying, look, I can't say this in my school because it'll be frowned upon, but I have this issue,
Mm-hmm.
right? So very often they open up.
Yes.
So, but what the point they've all raised is very important. There has to be rehabilitation, and rehabilitation can only happen if they talk about their problem. If they keep it bottled inside, it will linger and linger, and it's like something which
May
gets
I
septic.
say something?
Yes, ma'am.
May I say something about this
Please.
confidentiality of respecting confidentiality of the counselee? Now, respecting confidentiality of the counselee, sir, many a times the counselor needs to make changes in the student's life, and the teacher's role, it plays a very important role. So what I feel, she or he has to do it very indirectly without letting out any important information.
Absolutely.
Sometimes even parents have to be,
Yes.
we need to censor some information even from parents, because they have said
Um,
this to the counselor with great trust on the counselor. And
no,
it's a
not only that,
very, very
the
sensitive
victim
role,
doesn't
sir.
want the parents to know in some sense.
Exactly, sir. Exactly,
So
sir.
I
So it's
will
a
fully
very
with you. It has to be
sensitive,
confidential,
yes,
but
sir.
you have to bring about a change
Exactly, sir.
so
And
that
sometimes we see with bullying behavior, sir, it is the bully, the one who has bullied, is the most insecure person on this whole earth,
absolutely.
for which he or she has been bullying.
Now,
Uh,
because
so we have to look into these fears and insecurities also, sir.
yeah,
Thank
see,
you.
because see, they are themselves not confident, self-assured people. They
Yeah.
draw strength in putting down others. Seen. If they were self-assured, they would let you live your life. Why would they bother you? But this is their way of validating their own existence and saying, I am what I am. But yes, I agree with you. Having got the confidential information, you have to do something about it. But when you do it, there should be no visibility. It's like it happens in politics and all. Sometimes, say, uh, say it happens, say recently between in Israel and all, it was in the news. They'll bump off some leader somewhere, right? But they will say, no, no, we don't know anything about it. We don't know who did it. Everyone says Israel ne kiya hai, but they don't know kisne kiya hai. It should not be able to be it should not be able to be traced back to you that you leaked out this information, because that child and other children in future will never talk to the counselor again.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. There is a very interesting question that I've got, that many a times parents are reluctant to accept the fact that their child has bullied another child, and they become defensive, and they tend to protect their child and feel that the school is harassing them. So how should they handle these kind of situations?
Yeah, so if the child is a bully, the child is a bully in the school.
Yes,
If the child is a bully at home, it's not your problem as a school, right? If child is bullying somebody at home, that's not your problem. If the child is bullying someone in school, it's your problem. Why do the parents have to be part of the story? You have to tackle the mindset and behavior of that child in school. It may have a positive impact outside, damn good. But moment you involve the parents, right, then you are classifying that bully as being outside the norm, right? And therefore guilty. And if the child is guilty, parents, out of love for the child, will tend to be defensive. Or for fear that you may take action against the child, they will go with the child. Because see, they'd only hear the child's story, the bully story at home. That look, I am being falsely implicated. There were actually four of them. I was not there. I just happened to be hanging around. They're blaming me wrongly. A lot of narrative will be created. Why, if you want to tackle this bully in the school environment, you got to tackle in the school environment. Why bring the parents into this?
because that person also messaged, but parents have to be kept in the loop.
No, no, keep them in the loop. Yeah, whatever actions you're taking, you're doing by positive reaffirmation.
Yeah,
Even the bully, right? On day one, what are you trying to do? You're trying to make him a non-bully in the future. Or on day one, are you putting him into Tihar jail? No, you're not.
yeah,
If he stops bullying, that is the best you can have in school.
yeah,
And let me tell you, if a bully stops bullying, he and the victim sometimes become great friends. If it happens positively, right?
yes.
So therefore, saying parents giving a loop, hello, dear parent, and like happy to inform you, your son is a bully. We have identified him. What will the parents' reaction be? You think they're going to support the school? No way.
No way. Yeah,
No way. Times have changed. I mean, when we were younger, parents, if a teacher gave us 4 slabs, parents say give 4 more. It's the other way around. The world has changed. So therefore, involving the parents in a hurry is not required. right? Till you have taken necessary steps in school. And when you bring them in as partners to help you and not as someone you're reporting to. It's like lodging an FIR with the parent, equivalent of that.
Yeah,
So then it becomes legal. Now you jump straight from the moral and emotional plane to the legal plane, saying your child is guilty in our eyes already. Then where is that whole concept of redemption gone?
yeah.
You've gone into the retribution stage. And the whole that approach then, as I said, this is a genuine and big problem happening at present and been happening for last some time. Resolving it is not easy. It's not going to vanish. Please remember what I'm going to say may sound very nice. There is no magic wand. It's not going to vanish.
Yeah,
But as I said, you can prevent it. You can mitigate it. You can have preparedness that what if something happens, all that. Seen, but you cannot make it zero. But the fact still remains, you can do a lot of steps to making it worse. Mitigating is one of the steps is to make sure that you don't blow up this out of proportion.
hmm,
Instead of acting on it, you're calling parents, you're calling Timbuktu, you're announcing loudly that this and that. Seen, certain things are done softly. All the best negotiations in the world are done quietly behind the scenes.
absolutely, sir. We can start a war and also end a war with these kind of conversations. So
Pardon?
I'm saying we can start a war with conversation and
Yeah,
also end
yes,
it
yes.
with a conversation. So
That's what. Whatever is finally decided is always behind the scenes.
yeah.
Otherwise, you're talking at each other, you're not talking to each other.
Hmm.
And that is one of the biggest problems that happens, that when we're talking at each other, to students, to parents, right?
Yeah.
Automatically, you're creating a barrier between yourself and them.
Yeah, and
And there is
also
a
then it
sense,
becomes a blame game, sir.
exactly.
Pointing fingers that your child has not
Yeah.
done this,
So
or
when you're pointing fingers, I
mm,
can assure you the big loser is always the school. The natural sympathy of the public, of the media, is always against the school, and particularly private schools. And sorry for saying this, but very often incidents that happen in a government school are not viewed with the same lens as incidents that happen in a private school. And in fact, sometimes the better known a school is, the worse it can become.
absolutely, sir. I think we have
See,
seen it in recent
yeah,
incidences
yeah,
as well.
yeah. So, but in those incidents also, if the schools introspect carefully, they would have found that many of the steps that I've highlighted at the beginning could have been taken or may not have been fully taken. Seen. But this confidentiality bit is the bottom line. I'm telling you, the moment that confidentiality creates trust, and trust allows, raises the threshold of tolerance. And if there's a higher threshold of tolerance, what looks like very offensive to me becomes less offensive. Do you get me?
Yes, absolutely.
Shika ma'am, I have a question. One of the participants personally messaged me.
Okay.
Her question is, the question is, if parents are not informed, later, they say at times that you're harassing my child, or, they talk about the older things. And, sometimes the parents are also seeking for evidence, or they are asking to keep them in loop about everything. In that situation, how should the school react, and or how should the school support the parents as well as the child? And additional question: does confidentiality only limits to a counselor or knowledge, or like the counselor has the authority and the right to share it to the school safety committee also about what the incident is?
See, confidentiality is the rule. If your school committee is empowered, then it can be shared with the school committee, but it stays within the school committee. It doesn't go to the entire teacher community. It is not spoken of amongst the students, right? The identity of the child who's getting bullied is hidden. Okay. So it is very important that moment the child feels that this is going to be public knowledge, they will not tell you in the first place. And if the child does tell you, it is on the understanding that look, either it had too much or can't take anymore, or they feel that look, the people I'm telling will keep it to themselves and do something about it. Suppose the child does tell you and you do nothing about it, you don't inquire, you don't find out discreetly what is the thing that's troubling. When he says, look, I don't want to take names, but I get bullied during the recess and so place. You need to monitor and track who are the ones he hangs around with, who comes in contact with the child, who is not from his immediate friend group, right? There is a lot of work to be done. And when I say keep parents out, I'm not saying keep parents out. After all, they are the parents' children. You are looking after somebody else's child. I'm not saying please don't misunderstand. What I'm trying to say is on day one, first thing, don't say कि एक complaint आई है आपके बेटे के बारे में, आप आइए जरा स्कूल आपसे बात करनी है. You haven't done your homework. You haven't found out the facts of the matter. You haven't come to any assessment of the situation. And when the parents are called, you need to sit with the parents and come up with a common strategy,
Yeah,
whether it's the
as
victim's
a team.
parents or the bully's parents. Okay, look, how do we handle the situation together? Not we versus you.
Yeah,
Firstly, there was a victim and a bully inside school. Now you'll have a victim and a bully between the school and the parent. And the parent will always behave like a victim.
yeah,
And the school will always be portrayed as a bully. So, yes, you have to involve the parents. After all, it's their children. Any consequence that happen, any self-harm that happens, anything worse happens, the consequences and will be suffered by the family. But before you jump the gun on day one, on the first complaint that you get, right? If it's a very grave complaint, yes. But if it's a complaint of bullying, there are again shades of bullying. One is very extreme. A lot of it we are talking about, generally, the impression I got was about physical bullying. What about cyberbullying and trolling? That's even worse. The impact is far worse in that. And long lasting and anonymous. Sometimes they don't even know who's bullying, but they sense that this guy must be doing it or this girl must be doing it because of the context.
sure.
So, step one is first I said to Eve, understand the child even before it happens. Uski chaal dekho, I'm telling you, you will see a difference in the child, the look in the child's eyes, the behavior, responses in class. I mean, I'm sure you've gone all through all that before I joined, right? Please monitor this. We are not paying enough attention. We're so obsessed with finishing our curriculum or addressing. There's so much of other things teachers have commitments. I agree with them that they have no time to pay attention to individuals. And if you pay attention to people, you will find you can sense a problem before it hits you in the face.
Yeah,
And if you get the first sense of it or first information of it, immediately start investigating. Sometimes people will say, okay, I have to convene a committee, so usko 3 दिन लगेंगे. No need. You must act immediately, the same day, the same moment. And no incident, no reporting should be taken lightly. अरे ये तो ऐसे ही बोल रहा है कि मैं सुसाइड कर लूंगा. ये कहाँ से अपने आप सुसाइड कर लेगा. It's not like that. You don't know when it can happen. Or he
yeah.
says मैं अपना हाथ काट लूंगा or something. I mean, I'll cut my veins or something. Don't take it lightly. Every case has to be treated as an extreme case.
Yeah, because I also believe, sir, that when there is a fake bomb threat, we do a drill, right? We know it's fake, but we still do a drill. Why? Because we have to follow the protocol. So if a child has shown any kind of distress or the language that he's or she's speaking in is not okay, we need to take action. We see,
Sometimes kids do it to draw attention to themselves. Let me tell
but
you.
we need to rule out that.
That, yes, you have to treat it as if it's a very honest complaint
Yeah.
to begin with, till it is
Yes.
proven to be otherwise, and then it can, you know, then you can change. But definitely, uh, you have to treat every incident seriously. You have to keep it confidential. Whatever steps you take should not be traced back to the person reporting the matter. If
Sure.
it is traced, the child is likely to get bullied further. And now there may be supporters of the original bully again bullying this child.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. I'm going to just take one last question here because that question has been troubling me personally. I wanted to ask, there's somebody who's asked that with positive reinforcement, sometimes positive punishment will also work. What is your opinion?
The word punishment has to be out of the vocabulary,
Yes,
right? Punishment means you have taken judgment. You only get punished if you have been judged. Anytime a child feels is being judged, right? You can give restrictions. You can impose boundaries. But the moment you think in your mind, the other day I told you about the school I went to in Bombay. In my third hour of my workshop with them, I asked them a question. I said, on any of my slides or by orally, have I used the word class control anywhere? They said, no, sir. I said, that is the point. I said, and when I said that word class control, I've seen the response from all the teachers. Oh, you know. So I said, there you are. In your mind, class control comes. The word control comes, then your relationship with your child is not equal. You
Yes.
can only control somebody who's unequal. So
Yeah.
I said, similarly, the moment you're talking of punishment, that means you are the judge. Now, in this judgment, who's the prosecutor, who's the jury, who's the judge? You, not the student is all on his own. So, moment that thing happens about punishment. That's why I didn't even say reward. Reward and punishment are flip sides. I'm saying you give positive reinforcement that look, every time you do something which is appropriate, that is what will be recognized. When it is not appropriate, you will either be ignored or discouraged. Now, if something very drastic happens, you have to punish. Let's say three guys get together and thrash a kid black and blue. And if your school rule says zero tolerance to physical violence, yes, you got to suspend those kids and throw them out. Definitely. Even the law says, even if for murderers and all, it says they'll only be hanged in the rarest of rare cases. Even in such serious crimes, there is that hope of redemption left in the air. So I
Yeah.
know what sounds a bit idealistic, but please understand, in the long run, only that approach will work. None of this controlling, authoritarian. You can be authoritative, don't be authoritarian. And that is the risk that happens. If we have authority in our hands, we tend to be authoritarian.
Hmm. Great, sir. I think it was fantastic because this was a total, 180-degree shift of what we usually think, how we tackle bullying. But, your answers were definitely making us think that what kind of educators we are. And I'm sure that their life is going to change from today to tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a better day. Tomorrow, the whole vision of how do we handle kids is going to change. And also, we are going to, create a report of whatever questions were asked and whatever answers you had given once you approve, sir. So we are going to share it with, all our members where they can learn and understand the main points that you discussed so that they can make their schools more robust.
Yeah, there may be some of your participants who may have felt they didn't have enough chance to ask or what they wanted to ask, or they may have found my answers out of sync with their routine approach to the problem.
Yes.
You can collect their mails and individually and tell me what the questions are. As and when I have time, I'll answer them on mail.
Sure. Absolutely. Again, means a lot, sir. Thank you so much for your time. And if anybody, again, as sir said, if anybody has any questions or if they have any doubts, please reach out to us. We'll, give you the answers to those specific questions. However, I think we have already covered, and when I started the session also, I asked a lot of tough questions. That why are you in this education segment? Why? Why did you choose to be an educator? So on and so forth. So we had those, I asked a lot of tough questions and I think they were already prepared. So, but thank you once again, sir. Thank you for your time.